Welcome, everybody. Hello. This is Spirit Matters. I'm Dial Grunga with the Chutagopi Kishore Chandra coming in live from New York and our live virtual studio audience from all over the world, including we just found out we have someone from Cleveland. Cleveland's in Ohio. Kishore is learning his United States geography. Although he is a globe trotter, he's not a states trotter. Um, and so we have Cleveland representation. We've got the entire United States all over the world and wherever you're tuning in from. Thank you for being here. How we doing this morning, Thursday morning? How are you guys?
I'm doing great. I started doing exercise yesterday after a while, and it's so interesting. I'm just meditating on like how when we become unconditioned from like doing a good habit to try and restart it is very hard.
Oh my
I
God.
woke up this morning and I was like so sore. My body was like, like I couldn't move. So I'm meditating on that.
It's so funny that you mentioned that word habit because that word came into my mind so strong this morning because I was realizing how much I don't want to expose myself here, but I was realizing like I have no habits. Like I have very few habits. I think brushing my teeth every evening and every morning is a singular habit that I've stuck with my entire life. But it's like in terms of other habits, like what are the habits, things that I do every day at the same time? I mean, I chant japa in the morning, but that sometimes is in the afternoon. And I was just thinking about how much I want better habits in my life. And I
Mm,
was really thinking about that. And I'm glad you brought it up. I see it as something that is important.
Srila Prabhupada always said habit means practice. So practice.
Mm,
And I kind of like that because it's like this idea of like habits and are they supposed to stick with you for your entire life? I mean, I guess some of them, but maybe some of them are there to serve a purpose, or maybe some of them are there just to practice for some time. Like I just got this what's it called? Bentonite clay.
oh, yeah. The
And
cleansing stuff.
yeah, yeah. And so then I was gonna just, start like, taking some, et cetera, et cetera. And then, I was looking at like at vitamins and different probiotics and stuff. And you think you get into the habit and you're supposed to take them every day for forever. But actually they're supposed to go in cycles. Like you take some for some time, then you give your body a break, and then you take some again, and then you give your body a little bit of a break. Like,
Mm,
so I'm like, it's so interesting to talk about habits and practice. And sometimes breaks are essential.
mm.
I was talking about this with your brother, Ananta, who
Basically, we are adopting Kishore Chandra.
yeah, I've and I was talking about this with him because I was really trying to control my eating habits. I'm kind of self-controlled, but I'm the kind of person that once the floodgates are open, like that's it, it's over. And I was talking to Ananta on the phone, and he was just like, "Yeah, after that wedding, like I just realized, like I got to lose some weight, and I got to get back into my healthy habits and whatever." And I was just like, I don't know about you, Ananta, but that wedding opened up the floodgates. I needed one final day post wedding where I was just like, screw it all. I'm eating ice cream at midnight. I don't care. I was just like, all of it, all of it. And then the next day I woke up and I was just like, okay, like I got it out of my system. It happened. And now let's get back into it. And I think that sometimes, and the reason I mentioned that is not to push ice cream at midnight on people. It's very un-Ayurvedic. Um,
So good.
well, you know what? It's so good, but I'm really trying to not blaspheme Ayurveda anymore because it happened one time where I was just like, I don't believe in Ayurveda anymore, and then like I ate some salad and it was bad. The
Salad.
Ayurveda
Salad is so terrible for you.
it it threw me completely off. The Ayurveda
Really?
gods, yeah.
Like,
Oh
Depending
my
depending on
amazingly
your
enough,
body type. Depending
Ayurveda
on your
will let
body
you
type.
know. Like, that's the
depending on your
crazy
body
thing.
type.
Like, salad is not good for everybody. Me
Mm-mm,
and my body, salad is not good for everybody. This body right
mm-mm.
here, me and salad do not jive. No.
But the point that I was making was that like I think sometimes because I'm like this a little bit, like sometimes we get so rigid in our habits where it's like it has to be like this every single day, and if I don't do it, it ruins my entire day. And it goes into like a guilt, shame spiral as well. If I missed my good habit, that means I'm bad. That means I didn't do my practice. That means I didn't show up for myself or like whatever. And I know people who are like that, And I can be like that sometimes. Oh, if I didn't get my yoga in, or if I didn't do my exercise, that means I'm this or that means I'm that, you know? And I think that these breaks or these natural moments of just like, okay, it's, you know, take a little break, or this habit is serving a specific purpose. And I think sometimes we forget that it's serving a purpose. It's not meant to be like forever 150% of the time.
I mean, when it comes to ice cream, it's 5 o'clock somewhere. I think any time's a good time.
That's me with ras malai. I'm not always so much about ice cream, but get me near ras malai and I'm just kind of like, give me all of it, everywhere in the world. Give me all.
It's interesting, and we're taking this thread and running with it. You know, because I was thinking about the Bhagavad Gita, and I was thinking about regulation, and Krishna mentioning in the 6th chapter the idea of that being balanced in both in your work, in your sleep, and in your recreation, which is interesting. Those 3 categories. I mean, I haven't heard anybody really comment on that verse extensively. But you know, like our work is like our purpose, our contribution, how we show up and engage with the world. Our sleep is our rest. It's our downtime. It's when we're not doing anything, when we're just letting ourselves be and heal and recuperate. And then our recreation is like our personal work, our pleasure, the things that we do for ourselves that don't necessarily have to serve a purpose of contributing to the world, but it's just almost like our self. I don't want to use this word of self-care because I know people are triggered by that word. Krishna said self-care in the Bhagavad Gita. It's there in the 6th chapter. But the idea of our recreation, and it's interesting because that word isn't. We understand what work is, and our karma and our action in this world is often, and the idea of rest is, you know, we understand that concept, but recreation is so. It's so open for definition according to the individual in terms of what that looks like and means. And I think it so much of the Bhagavad Gita is about building spiritual maturity so that we can approach what that quote unquote break, what that quote unquote splurge, what that quote unquote balance looks like. Because I you know, I've heard often that justification is a service performed by the intelligence towards the false ego. The justification is a service that the intelligence performs. Justification is a function that the intelligence performs in service to the false ego. So, you know, we can justify anything in any direction, and it takes a certain groundedness, a maturity that, am I just justifying something, or am I actually recognizing the balance that I need in order for the bigger picture of my life to make sense? And I think that, you know, so much of the Gita it's interesting because the 6th chapter is the last chapter before we get into the bhakti section, before we really get into like devotion. Like we're exiting the realm, not exiting the realm, but moving on from the realm of like, you know, detach yourself from material enjoyment and you know, engage without, you know, being attached to the results and all of those things, and act as a form of sacrifice, and karma yoga and karma yoga and all, etc. And like the last thing he says is like, okay, like I'm leaving it up to you now. You've built the tools to balance yourself, because now we're entering into the realm of devotion, which is less about rules and regulations and getting to the T and more about the spirit of it. And I hope 6 chapters in, you've built some maturity to where you're able to kind of navigate them a little bit and not just use things as an excuse of like, whoa, Kishore said I can eat ice cream at midnight and it's because I need balance. You know, and it's like,
I mean, that's where I am.
I haven't eaten anything today. I'm fasting because I'm going to the doctor later.
Really?
Getting blood work on the way to the Bhakti Center.
I need to do that, actually.
I went to the doctor yesterday, and because I don't have insurance, I'm paying out of pocket. She's like, if you come tomorrow fasting, I'll get your blood work done and I'll be able to somehow make the test so that you pay less. And I was like, okay, I'll stop eating now. So I haven't eaten anything. I haven't had any ras malai, any ice cream or salad in the last 12 hours. Anyways, that point aside.
You know, also when we're talking about justification, because I am so good at finding justifications for for a moment. I was like, why must you flame me this way, Doyle? Like, somebody was like, wow, that's a takeaway. I was like, that's a put away. I'm not like, I've
That's an
seen
attack.
Jeffrey
now
said ice
I'm
cream
putting it away.
salad.
I'm going to put that away. And that's, that's that. But yeah, I have that tendency to really kind of like justify anything. But I have also kind of reined in that tendency of is this actually serving a function, or am I just justifying anything, everything? And interesting that we're talking about habits and eating too much or eating too little. And that's what Krishna says. You shouldn't eat too much or too little. Like, it's not that this life should just be bare bones, all sacrifice all the time. I love that Krishna's like, whoa, it's not what this was about. Like, you're not meant to just do austerity at all times. There should be pleasurable experiences. There should be recreational experiences. There was once uh, a renunciate, a sannyasi, right? And their lives are kind of dedicated toward austerity. But what he did was he would often lead a tour of like young boys around, like his idea of Gurukula, or the ashram of the guru, was to lead these boys around a North American tour. And so at one point, and they would be all ages, and at one point they were playing soccer, and some other senior person was getting on his case, like, oh, why are these kids engaged in frivolous play? Srila Prabhupada said it shouldn't be about frivolous play. And the sannyasi turned and he's like, oh no, this is not frivolous for them. They're really serious about it. And I thought that was always like the most perfect answer, because he could understand that these kids needed this. Also, I think as a person who had dealt with children for so long, he also needed this, because if you have them all cooped up, you have 12 you have like 12 or 15 young boys from the ages of 8 to 14, all cooped up in a bus or a van or whatever, and they haven't gotten a chance to go play. Like, come on, Doyle, if you don't let Jiva get all of that energy out, like, you're like, this is not going to work. It's not going to happen. And when you do, he's so adorably like happy. At the wedding, at one point, Jiva was just kind of like walking around and getting into stuff and just kind of sniffing around. And he wasn't bothering anybody, but I kept looking over, because that's how Jiva was walking. It wasn't just like, dogs have a different walk. When they're in trouble, they walk different. When they're sneaking around, they walk different. But he was just living his best life, and his walk was just like, and I was
Call it
like,
his trot. It's his little trot.
so adorable. It was the most adorable thing ever. But if you don't give him that space to let that energy out and to be himself, it's completely the opposite. And then there's aggression. There's all this stuff. There's from all this repression. And so I think it's so important that Krishna is saying, like, whoa, life is not just meant for the austerity. Yes, sacrifice happens to be a big part of it, but sometimes the austerity and the sacrifice will also naturally arise. There will be moments, there will be periods of life where material nature naturally causes you to go into points where there is more sacrifice, there is more austerity, but then there is more frivolity, there is more happiness. There should be a section of our lives for recreation, for just being boundlessly happy, for abundance, for pleasure, for all of these things. And I think it's so important for us, especially as bhakti practitioners, to understand that it is a service for us to also be happy. It is a service for us to be pleasurable. It is a service for this. They say a devotional service is joyfully performed. Where's the joy? Like, there was, one of my favorite TikTokers, he like ends all his stuff like, find your joy. And I was like, yes, really, seriously, find your joy. Where is it? It's a service.
Kishore's got something to say.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot to say. I like this idea of space, and of having space to be happy, and having space to like really find our joy. I think a lot of that space, I'm also thinking about what we spoke about yesterday, which was really knowing ourselves and really knowing our boundaries and really knowing like who we are and what we like. Because a lot of the times when we reach out for things that we think are for our enjoyment, sometimes I've had to really pause and be like, is this actually making me happy? Or am I just doing it because whatever, fill in the blank, like emotional eating or emotional this or emotional that, because I'm not wanting to feel something that's going on in me. And therefore I'll do the habit, right? I'll zombie out on some Netflix special, or I'll eat a whole pint of ice cream, or I'll do this. And I think that goes in line with things, with like ice cream and TV, or like whatever it might be, but it also goes in line with people, because like I at least have a tendency sometimes, I'm a lot better at this, but I used to have a tendency of just like cutting people out. I'm just like, oh, you crossed me, bye forever. It's over. Like, you'll never hear from me again.
It's a Scorpio thing. It's a Scorpio thing.
And I've really learned to just like pause.
It's a Scorpio and a Chuta thing.
And a Chuta thing. I've really learned to pause and just like try, you were saying this at Chuta yesterday about your sister, like trying to give the benefit of the doubt, and not necessarily like, I think it's always a balance of like not being a doormat where I'm allowing myself to be walked over, but also not this other extreme of like, I'm cutting you out, it's over. And just that patience of like, do I actually like this ice cream that I'm eating? Is it actually making me feel good? Am I actually enjoying this? Do I actually like being around this person, or is it triggering me in some sort of way? Is it about the person, or is it about me, or what? And just like having that moment to like observe what's going on with you, I think is super important, because I think the tendency is that justification, that like really, really moving into that kind of judgmental, almost critical mind of this is good, this is bad, this is going to make me happy, this is not going to make me happy. And I think that's where when things get really sped up, is when things start to get lost. You start to realize you're around a bunch of people that don't make you happy, but you thought they did. You realize have a bunch of habits that you thought made you happy, but actually you're just eating a pint of ice cream at 2 a.m, and watching a Netflix special for who knows how long, right? And the thing is that it's not, I guess the point I'm making is that it's not inherently wrong. And I think sometimes we get into that like shame spiral, like this is bad. And it's like, no, yesterday I had this moment. I got the ice cream and I was just like, you know what? I had a healthy day, but I just want something sweet. And I like had a moment where I was like contemplating. I was standing by the freezer. I was like, okay, and I like got the ice cream and just like a couple of spoons, and I'm like really enjoying it. No, bro, I got the ice cream the day before, but I had some ice cream left over. It's self-control. And I just had a few spoonfuls, and I was really like standing there and just enjoying it. And I was like, this is good. This is like good. And I put it away, and that was it. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is like not reacting so quickly, to the person, to the ice cream, to the habit, to the whatever it is, because that will move me into what we were talking about yesterday. That's right. I wanted to tie this all in. That will move me into a space of like, they're bad. I don't want to be around that group of people, or that person is like this. Done. It's like I've learned a little bit to like give people second chances, give a benefit of the doubt, and just like really see like, do I like being around them? I don't know. Let's find out. Let's try again. And then after a few tries, I'll be like, no, I don't. Or yes, I do.
I was just noticing how the time of eating ice cream kept getting pushed back. It like started at midnight, then it became 1 a.m. Now it's at 2 a.m. This seems like an ongoing exercise.
Listen. What is night for
yes.
Okay. Can we bring it back to Bhagavad Gita? What is
I'm having an enlightened moment at 2 a.m. with the ice cream.
Day.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Like I said, it's daylight somewhere. I want to hear from you, Chuta, but I was also just what was coming up for me a lot was just the idea of just intentional living, and every aspect of our life being very intentional. And I think when we one of the challenges, and also one of the something that just naturally comes up when we live intentional living, is it forces us to evaluate or reevaluate our relationships, because the people around us are either people that are justifying bad habits that we don't want to have anymore. It's okay. It's, and you realize it's like, no, I don't want, we sometimes find people that make us feel better about our bad choices. Or we sometimes find people that hold us accountable and elevate us to a higher standing of living. And, or we also find people that we talked about this idea of home and belonging and just being, who see us for who we are, accept us for who we are, aren't trying to change us to be different, and at the same time want the best for us. And so I think that unless we become intentional with our living, we don't really know what we're looking for in relationships. And sometimes I want friends, I want a partner, I want a family, I want all these things. But how do you even know who or what you're looking for if you're not clear what you're looking for in your own life, and how, because then what happens is we find ourselves unfulfilled or not where we want to be, and then we just start blaming the people around us. So it's like, well, wait a minute, we didn't do the due diligence to realize like what I'm actually, where I want my life to go, and how I want relationships to support or play a part in that. And so I was just appreciating the intentionality of spiritual life. That in a lot of ways, spiritual life really is, in a very simplified way, just becoming very, very intentional about our life. And Chuta's leaning in, eyes are getting big.
Because like we're getting closer to the word. It's, you know, like this whole idea of intentionality, all of these things. We're becoming conscious
Conscious
of Krishna. Oh my God.
Krishna.
Yeah.
And you know
It's
what?
like it's in the name, guys.
They used to tell all the time in the ashram, and I don't know if this is a Prabhupada quote or not, but it would say, first become conscious, then become Krishna conscious.
Yeah. And you know, it goes into the greater principle of moderation. And once we become intentional and conscious, this moderation occurs. And that's what Krishna is talking about, this overarching principle of moderation. And so I feel like within this ongoing dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, Krishna says a lot of things, and you might think Arjuna is not saying them. But because of the commentaries of our Vaishnavacharyas, there's also an internal dialogue where Krishna knows Arjuna's thoughts. So there's so many times it's like Krishna is saying, you know, he's like, well, you've got this establishment and it kind of needs to break down. It's like, yeah, down with the establishment. But also, you do need establishments. Like, you need government. You're like, yeah, you need governments. And so then he starts talking about these things because moderation. It's like, you know, also, you don't want to hanker too much, but you also don't want complete aversion, right? So this idea, right, Kishore, of like, okay, yeah, I've got all these people, or cut them out completely. Or if you like something sweet, but then you're like, oh, aversion to all the sweet things because that's healthy eating. It's like, no, actually, moderation is the healthier part, where you don't like, you don't want too much hankering, nor do you want complete aversion. Neither one will be good for your life, spiritual, material, or otherwise. And I love that Krishna's really, he's like honing it in. He like phones it in. He gives it, he keeps on hammering at this point. Like, you don't want moderation. You need moderation. Dude, you need some moderation. We're going to need some moderation, because this material world is filled with dualities. And when you're in this place that is filled with dualities, you're going to have to flow with it. And so then what happens when, you know, you think you've gotten all of the good habits, and then, like you said, you have that cheat day, then your whole thing crumbles, and then your whole idea of yourself crumbles. And then there are countless examples of how it's crumbled and what it looks like. There's an example with Sri Chaitanya himself. There was a god brother of Sri Chaitanya's guru, his spiritual master, who comes, and his whole deal is just fault finding. And he finds fault with everybody, and specifically like their eating habits. And then he goes and he starts finding fault with Sri Chaitanya, who, Krishna himself, and all of the devotees, they actually feel heartbroken. Because what Sri Chaitanya does is he says, well, if he's going to find fault with my eating habits, then he cuts his eating habits in half. And they say, but you're the emblem of austerity already. Like, why? How much of this are you going to take? And not because we don't think you can do the austerity. You can. But it broke their hearts to see somebody giving in to someone else's just mindless, thoughtless, it's like fault finding without the intention behind it, like you said, Doyle, of making us better or having our best interests at heart. This person did not have Sri Chaitanya's best interests at heart. So it broke the devotees' hearts to see him pandering to this person. And they're saying, you know, if you want to take up austerity and it's for intentional purposes, perfect. But if it's just mindless to appease some other person. And so this is, you know, Krishna, become knowledgeable about this self. And he tells Arjuna, become knowledgeable about yourself. Become knowledgeable about what your body needs, about what your soul needs, about what your intelligence needs. Because all three of them are working in tandem, right? All three of them are working to bring this life about. So become intentional, become knowledgeable about what the self needs, then act with intention. And he's always telling, act with intention, act with this knowledge in mind. So he asks him so many times, okay, are your doubts dispelled? Are you feeling okay? How are we feeling? Are we intentional? Are we conscious? Are we knowledgeable? Okay, then act. And it's so important for us in every single sphere of our lives. Otherwise, we break our own hearts. We break the hearts of those around us, because not only are we looking for other people to satisfy those things, but really it's not about the people. You want people around, but what do you really want? Companionship, comfort, security. Sometimes you just want somebody to build you up. Sometimes you need that outside voice that says, you're doing a good job. And then when we put that on other people and we're not clear about it, and then the other people are not fulfilling it, like you said, we get mad at all those other people. But what did we want? We wanted comfort. We wanted a hug. We wanted that moment of solidarity. We wanted somebody to stick up for us. We wanted somebody to speak for us. We wanted something. There was something there. But if we're not intentional about it, if we're not knowledgeable about it, it falls through the cracks, and we break our own hearts and the hearts of those around us.
Is there a chainsaw massacre happening in your side bedroom?
They are mowing the lawn. And I don't know. They just decide it's like Thursday at 9:30.
I just was appreciating you so much. You were like,
I know. I'm like
preaching the gospel. Like you were like soaring high, like in the clouds. And I was thinking, it's like, oh my God, we're running out of time. Like we're just getting started. We're revving up the engines, and then there's like, we're just like, it's bhakti in the city. It's spirituality right here in the city. I love everything that you just said, and I feel like that in itself almost can catapult us in a whole other conversation. But we're out of time. We're running at the end, and I want to invite Kimberly, our official Spirit Matters takeawayer. There's takeaways. That word was used earlier. And Kimberly, if there's any takeaways that you've noted down that you want to share with us that we can capture, and if anybody has any takeaways in the chat that they want to share, and then Kishore and Achyuta, I want to hear what you guys are taking away with. So what do you got for us, Kimberly?
Yeah, I got lots of takeaways today. So justification is a service performed by the intelligence of the false ego. Habits mean practice, and sometimes habits are there to serve a purpose for some time. Life is not meant for only austerity and sacrifice. Sometimes austerity and sacrifice will just naturally arise. Give yourself the space to let your energy out, to be happy and to be joyful. And then lastly, live intentionally.
Beautiful. Thank you. Kishore and Achyuta, what's your takeaways? What are you guys walking away with? A short little...
I'm walking away with this idea of and the Bhagavatam speaks about it. There's a beautiful verse, but I won't mention it because small takeaway. But there's just this idea of being joyful even when things don't go according to our plan, as opposed to being ashamed or guilty if I'm not able to do the things in moderation, right? Or if I fall into one extreme or another, how can I maintain joy and upliftment even when things don't go according to my plan?
Beautiful. Achyuta.
for me, and I feel like this has been like looming over my shoulder the past few days, because know what you want. And take a second to really get deep and know what you want. Like, my birthday's coming and everybody just keeps asking me, it's like, what do you want? I'm like, I don't know. But if nobody does anything, I will furiously cut you all off out of my life. But then they're like, okay, but I know you want us to do something. What do you want? I don't know. So I'm taking that away. Know what you want. And even if it's not, don't take time to know the thing. Know the principle behind what you want. So I was just really thinking, like, what do I want? I want like companionship and happy people, and like so yeah, I'm gonna start there and then see what spirals out from there.
I love that question. And for me, the question that I was already thinking of was, what does my life need right now? Because I was thinking, there's this idea of of austerity and recreation, and sometimes we need a little bit more than the other at different times in our life. And so yeah, I was just thinking that question of being aware, like, what does my life need right now? Sometimes it needs me to really hunker down and gear up and push forward, and sometimes it needs me to take a little break or let things pass. Sometimes it needs me to grab every opportunity that comes my way. Sometimes it needs me to just like let things go and fall into place. And so that's the question that I'm walking away with. Thank you guys all so much. It's Chuta's birthday on Saturday. Make sure to get her something. We don't know what it is, but get her something for sure. If you want to be in her life, I
Exactly.
recommend
I
it.
was about to say, if you don't, you won't be hearing from her again.
Krishna Govinda. Jeffrey Acker saying size small. We love you guys. Be well. Take care. And we'll see you all again very soon. Be well. Bye-bye.